Learning downtime is really the time that a student is not learning because they don't have the device that they need to do their job. So really we think of, the device they use as a tool that they use to complete their work. And if they don't have that device available, they can't do their job.
Hello there, and welcome to a new episode of the Easy EdTech podcast, a bonus episode coming to you on a Friday. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I'm a former New York City public school teacher, still here on the East Coast, and I've been out of the classroom for a couple years now, leading professional development for educators, writing about all things EdTech on my blog, classtechtips.com, and sharing lots of stories here on my podcast. Now, if you're used to joining me on Tuesdays for new episodes, I'm excited that today I've got something extra special for you. It's a bonus episode in partnership with Incident IQ. And if you've been following along this fall, you know we've had a handful of bonus episodes coming to you on Fridays this fall. And if you love Fridays as a bonus episode day, let me know. We switched it up for the fall, and I think it's been nice to have it drop on a different day of the week for this school year. So before we jump into today's episode, a reminder that all of the resources we talk about, everything that you might want to click on and explore is in the show notes. So go to classtechtips.com/podcast. That's where you'll see the show notes for this and every episode. Or if you're holding your phone right now, or you've got it on speaker next to you, you can always tap on the description in the podcast app that you're listening to. There's a description or summary area, and you'll see a link right there to the show notes. So either way, you'll get there so you can check out all the resources we chat about today. This episode is sponsored by Incident IQ, the support solution built exclusively for K-12. Today's classroom support requires an all-hands effort from school staff of all stripes, and Incident IQ works to bring these operations to a single, unified platform. With modern tools for help ticketing, student device inventory management, building maintenance work orders, and HR requests, Incident IQ is helping thousands of K-12 districts minimize learning downtime in today's technology-transformed classrooms. See how the Incident IQ platform can make a difference in your district by visiting incidentiq.com and learn more about the workflow management solution built exclusively for K-12 school districts. Today's episode is titled Streamlining Support and Better Help Request. It's a bonus episode with Incident IQ. And today I talk about a topic that might be front of mind for you, especially if you are someone who has to put in help requests when you need help, or you're someone who is managing help requests from a school or district level. And I chat with Emily Stapf, who's a customer success manager at Incident IQ, all about this. So we're going to go ahead, jump into the conversation. I know you'll find some great info and suggestions from this conversation with Emily. Welcome to the podcast today, Emily. I am so excited to chat about a very important topic for educators, which is making sure that they can streamline support throughout the school year. But before we jump into all of those great things, would love for listeners to hear a bit about your role in education. What does your day-to-day look like?
So, originally I started with a school district here in Knoxville, Knox County Schools. I worked for them for 14 years, doing various and assorted IT things. Worked with IIQ previously to coming to IIQ. So I was a customer before I was an IIQ employee. And so for me, a lot of that looked like asset management. So, what do we do when devices disappear? How do we handle that? How do we get a new one to kids? How do we minimize that teaching downtime and make it a very streamlined process? So I came to IIQ in December, and I love it here because not only do I get to continue to work with my district, but I get to help hundreds of other districts along the way as well.
Wow. And so I'm sure that experience of your own, right, as that kind of customer side of things too, right, you can definitely feel for someone who's in a situation where they might be a little overwhelmed. Maybe that's putting it lightly in certain situations with asset management. So, today we're talking about the importance of streamlining support and those help ticket requests which can help, limit learning downtime. So can you start by explaining what learning downtime means in the context of a K-12 classroom and why it's so important to address this issue?
Absolutely. I mean, learning downtime is really the time that a student is not learning because they don't have the device that they need to do their job. So really, we think of, the device they use as a tool that they use to complete their work. And if they don't have that device available, they can't do their job. So that's really just kind of how we very briefly, talk about learning downtime.
And I think that paints a picture for educators in all roles, right? Whether you're a classroom teacher who's experienced that disruption of making sure that everyone can accomplish a task or work collaboratively or have that tool, right, that they need to get their job done, whatever that might look like, in a classroom setting. And know that listeners who are in different roles, who might manage those devices, or who might hear some of those frustrations, right, from folks who are trying to make sure everyone has what they need, can understand, right, what that learning downtime looks like in their particular learning environment.
Absolutely. And for me, that also extends to the teacher who may be having problems with technology. And a ticketing system can help in that regard, be able for us to schedule a time that we come into their room that's not disrupting their teaching time so that we can help them as well and streamline that process.
That's such a great point too, thinking about learning downtime is not just the student piece of like physically holding a device, but that disruption, right? That anyone who's been in a classroom setting knows, right? As much as you tell everyone to continue on what we're doing, if there's someone doing something interesting or new or just unexpected in a corner of a classroom, it can absolutely be disruptive, even with the best of intentions, right? And that's another aspect of learning downtime that I'm so glad that you mentioned. So, what are some of these common tech-related issues in classrooms that can lead to learning downtime?
Well, I think some of the most common are because students, a lot of them are one-to-one right now. So a lot of it is student related. So whether that is a broken device, they're traveling back and forth, they're in backpacks, they're around siblings, they're around food and beverages. Like there are a lot of things that can happen to the device that could cause learning downtime. And so being on top of that and being able to quickly submit a ticket on behalf of the student or, having the student do them themselves in an appropriate environment. I tend to think that's like middle and high schoolers. I would really never expect an elementary kid to be able to submit a ticket on their own, but we have ways to let the teacher help them submit it on their behalf. So it streamlines the process by bringing the information not only about the device itself, but also about the student that was assigned to the device. So it doesn't take a lot of time to say, the device number is this, it's assigned to this student, here is the problem. Like we really try to streamline all of that into a few very simple clicks to minimize the time that it takes to actually submit the ticket. So that for me is probably one of the most important things is just being able to make it easy for, we call them requesters.
Yeah.
So make it easy for the requesters to be able to get the information to the technician that they need in a very quick and easy manner.
Yeah. And I'm just, imagining too, I know I was in a school where we were all very close, right? It wasn't very much a closed door, which in some situations it is, right? Everyone was always talking and sharing. And I was someone who was very tech forward, if you will, early on. So if something happens, someone might call me, right? Or say, can you help? And even with my best intentions, just keeping track of all of that, just couldn't happen, right? Or I would forget, or I wouldn't know which one, or they would forget which of the devices was the one that was being funky, right? And then we had to go, and take a closer look. So, that streamline, like you described, is wonderful just for making sure that everyone has what they need. And I'm curious too, just to bring this back to that classroom learning experience, in what ways can an effective help ticket system directly benefit that learning experience in K-12 classrooms?
Well, I think because we make the process so easy and we also have some things that automate things along the way on the back end, it really does cut down the amount of time that it takes for eyes to get on that particular problem. So we route tickets directly to a particular agent or, things like that so that we can streamline the response to the ticket as well. So whether that's getting the student another device, like in the case of a broken screen, we know that's not something that we can fix like immediately. We'd love to be able to snap our fingers, magically fixed, but it doesn't work that way. So, being able to swap out those devices in a super timely manner so that we're minimizing the time that the student doesn't have a device.
That's such a great point because there isn't always a quick fix for everything, or there isn't someone who's going to see an alert and be able to run down in the next 5 minutes. So that idea of prioritizing or understanding that this isn't really, a note or notification for that person, it's maybe this person, right, who's going to tackle that specific type of problem. And for as much as we might have a sense, even in a small, school community of who's the right person for what, like those things evolve, they change throughout the school year. So I just love that idea of keeping things really straightforward, right, for that requester, like you call them, right, that person who's, submitting something. So, can you share some best practices for structuring and organizing support and those help ticket requests in a school setting?
Well, I think one of the main things is that the most important thing is that we have to get the teacher to actually put in the ticket. So I've been in the classroom, I've been a technician, and I know how easy it is for somebody just to stop you in the hallway and say, oh, hey, I was having this little problem. But the really important thing is that we need the teacher to put in the ticket because that really does streamline the process and it makes it so that as a technician, you have a working to-do list. You know that these are the things I have to take care of today. These are like the high priority ones. This kiddo needs a new device and here's why. So, but in order for the technician to do their job, the teacher has to do their job, which for me is actually submitting the ticket, not a sticky note on my computer while I'm in the bathroom or an email or a text message, and so really being able to say, did you put in a ticket? That's really an important piece of it as a technician. So for me, the biggest hurdle a lot of times is just getting the teacher to say, I put in the ticket. Yeah, because they're very used to an email. I send an email and boom, it's taken care of. With a ticketing system, there are benefits to that, including visibility over the problem, accountability. There are lots of things, many good reasons why a ticket is important over an email.
Yeah. And those benefits, just from a tracking perspective, I can imagine, even if there's someone who's watching that data or watching that journey, right, if you will, they can make decisions like, oh, we need to allocate more time for this person to address this so that everyone has those devices, or we need to look at our budget to say, this is the right device, or this device is giving us a little more trouble than we anticipated, right? So just all of that data that's so actionable. Yes, email is great for certain kinds of correspondence, but I can absolutely envision, the reasons why you would want to have someone on that journey and being able to speak to just those trends and what's happening, in a space. So, for educators who are listening to this, who are wondering what they can do to kind of maybe even get ahead of some of these issues, are there any proactive measures educators can take to anticipate and prevent some common tech issues?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just taking a teaching opportunity to show the students why it's so important to take care of their devices. That stewardship piece of, we think of it, my mom was a librarian, so we tend to think of it as books, and at the beginning of the year, she would have the book talk where,
oh yeah.
and, you didn't put it around food and all those sorts of things. All of that applies to our devices as well. So, not letting your dogs and cats around your chargers, not putting, I talk about this one a lot because I think it's funny, but not putting your Chromebook in the same space with your banana. Like kids don't think about things like, they don't think that the banana is going to squish into all of the ports and make things really messy. But that gives us an opportunity. When they think about that, they're like, oh, I get it. Shouldn't do those kinds of things. And even something as little as I have a water bottle. I shouldn't put the water bottle in the backpack with the Chromebook because they don't think about it turning over or leaking or things like that. But all of those things, we just need to kind of bring to their attention that this is one of the things. But if by doing X, Y, and Z, we can take care of our devices better, which means that we're going to have them for teaching time.
Yeah. And just, as you were talking, I was thinking of all those kind of modeling moments that we do in a classroom setting from elementary all the way up to secondary, right? We say, I can tell this website isn't trustworthy because of X, Y, and Z, and we're modeling digital citizenship skills, right? Or we're modeling our writing and editing for students to watch us through the writing process. So that same sort of storytelling, like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't put my coffee mug into my bag this morning because it spilled everywhere and it would have gotten on my computer, like just all of those explicit, reminders and teaching moments, but then also to say like the storytelling around it. I think, you're so right. We often, take for granted that students know how to find a certain button, right? If they've spent a lot of time in Google Slides, right? But, we do need to really point out things specifically to have that storytelling behind it. And I think it is something that is maybe easier said than done, right? We can thread it in, or maybe it is that we put a sticky note, like, don't forget to tell this story this morning when we are opening up our Chromebooks or settling in. So I love that in terms of being proactive and just making it something that feels so natural. Like, of course we do it this way.
And hopefully those are good reminders for us as teachers and adults as well, because I've been there. I keep a cover on all of my keyboards because I am a spiller. I drink a lot. You mentioned coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. I've spilled coffee on multiple keyboards. Luckily, they were all covered, and and so I didn't have any downtime because of that. So I think keeping it in the front of our minds by telling the kids is also a really great reminder for us as adults as well. Like, don't stick it on top of our car and then drive. Right. That happened. Like, and things like that, where we just kind of need to be more aware of what we do so that we can pass it along to the littles as well.
Oh yeah. They're watching everything, and they listen to those stories and they project themselves into those stories too. So I think those are such great examples. And, as we're thinking both in that classroom, right, and for more of a maybe structural or logistical side of things, right, how can educators and IT teams, collaborate more effectively to reduce this frequency and really just the major impact that tech disruption can have?
Yeah, I think a unified platform. So what Incident IQ is a unified platform. So we have asset management, we have our ticketing portion. We also have some different modules for facilities and maintenance, as well as HRSD. So that is what I mean by a unified platform. We don't have to log into 12 different products in order to get done what we need to get done. So I think that is one way that we can really be proactive about the learning downtime, because we don't have to remember 12 different logins. It's one login. Basically, you log into IIQ and you can submit a ticket for your IT things. You can submit a ticket for your maintenance problems. So that really, knowing the system and knowing where to click in order to get that ticket in very quickly, that is how we minimize learning downtime as well. So a unified platform, I think, is one way to do that. Also, I think by communicating and saying here and giving them what they need in order to do their job, again, the right tools. So whether that is a one pager, like here's how you submit a ticket, or we also have something called Incident IQ Academy, and they're short little videos about how do I submit a ticket. Yeah. So those kinds of things, making sure that they really have the tools and the resources that they need to effectively and quickly be able to do their job.
Yeah. And just that ability to make it easy, right, for people. Like, you invest this time of understanding how to move through the platform, and it's going to save you, right, oodles of time throughout the school year. Once you understand that process, And just, I think so much of our conversation is around this too, right? The reasoning behind, right, that process or what, it takes to effectively manage something very large, right? Like lots and lots of student and teacher, devices. So I'd love to hear, Emily, a little bit more about Incident IQ specifically. I know you've got plenty to share there, and how educators can more efficiently manage and streamline the help ticket requests, both in schools and, at that district level.
Yeah. So Incident IQ is basically a workflow management platform.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we are dedicated to K-12. So I think that gives us a little bit more of what I like to call a leg up, because we are very focused and very driven by workflows that only and very specifically affect K-12 workflow management. So we actually have a lot of employees that are former educators or former technicians in school districts. So it gives us a unique perspective to be able to not only help with workflows when we're setting things up with the platform, but it also gives us a really kind of a bird's eye view of what happens inside of schools and school districts and classrooms and teachers. So we're able to not only help teachers, but also we're able to help drive enhancements within the product that are going to make it even more streamlined for teachers. So being K-12 focused, I think, is one of our best assets to Incident IQ.
That's fantastic. And I appreciate that perspective, in our conversation as well, just that focus on the pain points, the challenges, and all the benefits, that can come from really addressing those. And so, I'm, of course, for listeners who are maybe on the go, right? They can, of course, come back to this episode, click on all the links. But for someone who's, listening and wants to make that mental note of where to go, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and learn more about how Incident IQ has helped thousands of school districts and even more students and teachers everywhere manage the technology that they rely on through our website.
Well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your insight today, Emily.
Absolutely. Thanks, Monica, for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this great conversation with Emily, where we chatted all about things that you might want to put into your practice or take into consideration as you're streamlining support this year. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from the episode. Minimize learning downtime. Identify common tech issues in your classroom. Develop device care and use routines to prevent tech issues. Effectively collaborate with IT teams. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode by heading to classtechtips.com/podcast, including all of the ways to connect with the team at Incident IQ. A big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Incident IQ. Managing today's classrooms requires an all-hands approach using tools built for the unique needs of K-12 schools. That's why thousands of districts rely on Incident IQ's unified platform for help desk operations, student device inventory management, building maintenance workflows, as well as HR onboarding and offboarding. Visit incidentiq.com to learn more about their suite of support tools built for K-12 that are transforming support for and protecting instructional time in classrooms across the country. That's incidentiq.com. If you're listening to today's episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or maybe another favorite app, make sure to hit the follow button so that you don't miss the next episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. Following along with the podcast is totally free, and it just means that the next new episode will download for you automatically so you don't miss a thing. And if you'd like to leave a rating or review, I surely would appreciate it, but it also helps other people find episodes of the podcast if they're searching for something to listen to. So if they type in EdTech, they'll find us here on the podcast. Have a great week and check back on Tuesday morning for next week's new episode.